Pottery, it really didn't call me at first, but I think with most people, there's a part though where I tell people it's almost kind of like you get addicted to it. The clay gets underneath your skin, and then you feel like you have to create. I can throw a pot, and in just a short period of time, I can design something out of just a lump of clay. And then anytime I really come up with some nice designs, I can always get more clay and I can enlarge those objects. I got into a specific type of pottery, and that's called Raku. And Raku is a different type of firing, a Japanese method. It started in the 16th century, and how they would do it is they would take the tea bowls out of the kiln when they were hot, and then they would plunge them into water. And over here we still call it Raku. Anytime I take a pot out of the kiln when it's hot and I bring it into a cooler atmosphere, that's what I call Raku. To create one of my pots, I start out by taking a lump of clay. You wedge it to get the air out of the clay. Otherwise, if it was heated up in a kiln with air pockets in it, your pots would explode. And then I will set the clay on the potter's wheel. That potter's wheel will spin around, and I usually have a pretty good idea of what I'm going to make in the beginning. And then first off, I center the clay. The second stage is I pull the bottom of my pot out to where I want the width of my bottom. And then I start a series of called pulls. And what you usually try to do is you try to keep it into a cylinder. So I will grab a layer of clay, and then I will pull it up into a cylinder. And then on usually the third time, I will start to get the shape of my pot the way I want. And usually my pots will dry from top to bottom. So I will usually let my pots dry for a day or so, and then I turn them upside down. And then after that, I will take the pot and I will put it back on another wheel, and it's called a trimming stage. I will be able to come back with some tools. It's kind of like a wood lathe, and I'm able to trim off the pot, and it's kind of finishing out the pot. That's the pot time, whenever I can take off some of the excess weight, make sure all my curves are nice and smooth, and then I can actually add more texture to the pot, whether it be coming back in and adding grooves or ribs or anything. My glazing process, there's two that I do. Usually one, which most potters do, is I will take the pot from the very beginning and I will pour glaze on the inside. And then usually I usually wait about a day before I glaze the outside of the pot. And the outside of the pot, I have a glaze booth that I usually spray my glazes on. I actually make my own glazes. And then many of my glazes, I have a rough idea of how they're going to turn out. Many of them, I have no idea how they're going to turn out, which is something that's kind of nice and makes each piece nice and unique. I have one glaze it's called it's a copper matte, and the way it happens is whenever I put it into this pit that I'm going to have, which has combustible materials like straw or sawdust, when it hits that, it will catch that on fire, but the carbon will be absorbed into the clay and the glaze, and it will enhance the colors that I actually get. And I also get some crackling. And then I also have a horsehair pot, and that's very popular. And what I do on the horsehair pottery is I pull the pot out, which is a white clay, and I set it out, and then I put horsehair on it. And then when the horsehair hits it, it will, at 2,000 degrees, it will burn the hair away. And then as the hair hits it, it will shrivel, and it gives me a kind of a marbling texture or spalted wood, so I have a black and white design with that also. My firing is a different technique than most other potters, where usually they would have their pots in the kiln, and then the glaze would melt, and then they let it cool slowly. I let mine reach temperature till the glaze melts, and then at that point I pull my pot out while it's hot, and then I will set it into a pit, and that pit has combustible materials like straw, sawdust, or paper, and then when it hits that, it's like a hot horseshoe hitting paper. It will catch things on fire, and then it will release the carbon from the burning materials that is sucked into the vases and into the glazes, and then it will enhance my forms, and that's the part that I can't control. So each pot becomes nice and unique. What I tell a lot of people is that the form is what I can control, but if with only a good form and a bad glaze, or even a mediocre glaze, you're only going to have a good pot. But with good forms and good glazes, then you're able to have hopefully great pots. My greatest joy in this area is just being able to do what I like to do. I feel like there's a little bit of freedom that I have, and hopefully just be able to do what I feel like that's inside of me. My art doesn't make big statements. I just try to be able to master a craft, and when you see my work, a lot of people say they have to have it, which makes me feel real good. I feel like that I'm able to create a sense of beauty. And I always like to tell people, I hope that I'm only just at 45, I'm hoping I'm only just half as good as I hope to be. So as I get older, I hope that hopefully I'm lucky enough to keep my health and everything, and be able to continue to keep getting better and better.